Hey there, how's it going everybody? I'm Rob Reep and welcome back to my studio. This is the promised video. I promised you guys I'd get another one out and show you what I've been up to the past few weeks. So here we are. We're in the studio now. I'm back at work. It's Monday morning. You guys will probably see this video a little bit later. But I'm back at work and I just want to share what I've been up to. I've been painting a lot and I'm finding out that's part of the problem with uploading to YouTube. And the reason I haven't been doing it as often as I really would like to, I've actually filmed a few YouTube videos and just have not had time to edit them, and that's the biggest problem that's come into play. It's just finding time to edit videos in amongst my paint time. Now I'm not even getting out and taking photographs like I normally would. I've been spending a lot of time in the studio. Of course, we have a gift shop. You guys can see it there in the background as well, in that tan area of the gallery. So I do have to work here as well, but I've got plenty of studio time, and I've painted a ton of stuff for me. You know, some of you guys out there may have a slightly different perception of how much is a lot to paint in a certain amount of time, but for me, I've been painting quite a bit more than I have in the past, and that's a good problem, but it also has affected my YouTube upload schedule. What I'm going to attempt to do over the next few months is not necessarily try to upload every day. That's not going to happen. Maybe not even every week, but I'll do my best to get as many out as I can. They may be more raw, like the one you guys are watching now. I'm gonna try to save myself that editing time, and we'll see how it goes. But I want to give you guys a quick tour of what all I've been up to. So let's take a look. So this is my little painting area that you guys can see. I've got my tabaret in the middle. I had to really play around with this quite a bit because initially this middle easel, the not my plein air easel, but that smaller one in the middle that has the wet paint please do not touch sign on the top of it. I'll explain that hopefully here in a little bit in this video, but that was originally my largest easel, and I've definitely upgraded. Got a very nice large easel that I paint my larger pieces at now. That older easel there in the middle has been through the ringer. It's got a couple of pieces that are torn up on it, so I'm not painting nearly as much on that one as I used to. I've got my my Sienna plein air easel set up, and I've been doing most of my smaller panels actually on that, which it's benefited me painting with that in the studio because I've spent more time with it. I've gotten used to it, and I know that sounds weird to say that you need to spend more time with your equipment, but I really do. And I think once I get outside and paint more outdoors, I think having used this in the studio more, I think I'll just know my way around it better, and it'll go quicker. You know, that may be a little thing, but for me, it's a big deal. I don't think I've actually shown everybody my tabaret. It's just a piece of antique furniture that I picked up back in July of last summer. And the building that I bought just happened to have a piece of glass that was almost perfect to fit this thing. Didn't have to cut it at all. It was just a perfect little glass shelf with a nice thickness to it. So I laid that on top of the tabaret. It's nice and heavy, and that's my painting palette for when I'm working on this large easel. And when I'm painting, when I do move over here and paint with my smaller panels, I typically will just use my glass palette here on the Sienna plein air pochade box. Got my TV set up, and maybe I'll do another video at some point about how exactly I set everything up electronically to be able to put images that I want to paint on my TV, because it is a little special setup that I've kind of come up with. It's probably not the best in the world, but it works for me, and that's really all that matters, right? Show you guys, I don't have a ton of brushes. A lot of people that come into my studio are very surprised at the minimal amount of equipment that I actually have here, and to be honest with you, I probably only use about 50% of what you're looking at right now. There's a lot of brushes in here that I typically don't use. I hardly ever use a toothbrush, but I do have one just in case. I was for a time using Neo McGilp quite a bit, and I still do occasionally use it, but I've gotten back to where I just use a lot of Gamsol in my initial layers. I will use Neo McGilp on occasion, but it's a rarity now. I also attempt to save as much paint as I can, and this is just a little mason jar that I've got, and I'll scrape off my palette and mix all of my paint at the end of a session, and that's my grays that I can use if I need them. But typically don't use a lot of grays anymore. That's again kind of something like the Neo McGilp that I used for a time, and I've stopped using for the most part. But yep, so this is my painting setup. Big easel there, my larger portraits, larger landscapes I'll do on this one here, and then I've got two other easels over here for smaller pieces of work. I do have my Sienna backpack, and I think I've also got a Gorilla pochade box there as well. And I keep these in here. They're loaded, ready to go. So if I need to get outside and go paint, I'm out the door. We did lay brand new carpet throughout this entire room last summer. This place was in rough shape. It had just a concrete floor, very dirty, had old carpet, some remnants, sections of carpet. We got rid of all that. But to protect my brand new carpet, I did get some nice carpet protectors, basically chair rollers for an office, and I usually stand there and that protects the floor pretty well. So let's take a look at some paintings that I've been working on. This is a setup that I actually had put in place back in January. Didn't have it for the first half of the year that we had the studio open. But this is a really fantastic little tool that I love using. It's called the Rue Panel Ladder. It was actually a Christmas gift from my mom, of all people, who's always supported my artwork. But this can actually turn into a triangular position, and you can actually set it on the floor. So if you don't want to hang it on your wall, you can do that. But it's fantastic to be able to store this many paintings and let them dry without having to put them in some dingy place in the back. From a lot of people have commented, it's just a really nice piece of furniture. It just looks good. If I take a step back and show you my entire painting area, that panel ladder is pretty awesome. What I was doing back several months ago, before I had this, I actually have a window area in the front. The gallery has a terrific storefront, but I was using the storefront to not only display some of my newly finished paintings, but I was using that to help dry them. And I don't like the idea of I don't like the idea of putting my paintings in direct sunlight until they're fully done, and even then I don't like doing it a lot. So this is a better solution for me. Yeah, I mean, they do dry quicker if they're in the sun. At least that's what I think they do. That could just be a mental thing, but they do just as well here in the open room. One of the only issues I've had with the ladder itself is just the width. I have to actually lay down either another panel or cardboard right in here to be able to put smaller panels, because obviously it's got a set width, and I think it's maybe like an 11-inch gap, which I have to overcome. So if I've got anything smaller than 11 inches at its longest point, then I have to put something down to be able to lay it on. But that's not a big deal. I just end up using a lot of cardboard to work that out. But let me show you a few paintings. I'll just kind of start this one by one. This is one of my newest, which I really like. This one's already, I think, dry to the touch. It was at my top point on the ladder, but finished this one several weeks ago. This is a Bradley County pink tomato. I told you guys about that in the last video. With a salt shaker. This is how I grew up with these things. So obviously, art is something that I think we're all affected in different ways by. But for me, I like to paint things that I'm familiar with, things that inspire me, things that have been part of my life. And certainly, I'm not a huge tomato eater, but when I eat them for about 1 month during the summer, from June to July, and it's these Bradley County pinks that are so good, and I always ate them with salt. Just my mom would slice them up. We would have fried okra and tomatoes, and pretty much enjoyed them just that way. And that's where this painting was born out of, was just that simple love of a tomato with salt. So it's a simple approach, but I think it turned out to be a really nice painting. I'm very happy with it overall. So let's take a look at a few more. So this by no means are all of the paintings that I've completed over the past probably month or so. I've probably finished 25 or 30 so far, which is a huge number for me within a month's time. There was a couple of days where I was cranking out 3 a day. Of course, they were smaller. And these that I've got out, that I've laid out for you, represent some of the best and some of the worst, okay? So I'm going to go by one by one and explain what I've got going on. Now, again, I told you guys I've been painting a lot of tomatoes. This is another Bradley County pink. Really, with this one, I attempted to go pretty neutral with the color structure. Really close values. Probably looking back on it, I might not have carried it far enough. It maybe needs a little bit more vibrancy than I've given it, but I'm not unhappy with it. And I think after it's varnished, it will be a really nice piece. And I think that's an 11 by 14. Some of this one's actually on hardboard panel that I primed myself with a mixture of alkyd oil priming. Here's another tomato painting, again on a panel. One of the issues that I ended up having, a few of these I painted, you really can't tell, there's not much texture within the actual primer underneath. Now the reason that is the last batch of panels I made, and I make them all up at once, but the last batch of panels that I actually made, I did half of them primed with a roller, and then the other half I brushed on and then did a little light sanding. So, and that's with a couple of coats of primer. It wasn't just once, but I think 2 or 3 coats of primer. But I thought at first that the rolled primer was actually going to be superior. I thought it was going to have a better texture. What ended up happening though is after I sanded it, a lot of those that I primed that way had a gritty texture to the surface, and that ends up making the paint extremely difficult to spread. Added to that, the primer that I'm using has a little bit more absorption. I think I talked about that in that last video, and that's made it very difficult to paint some of these. So I've really switched, and when we get down here to the end, I'll explain what I'm doing differently now. Here's one of my landscapes. This is actually from a photo I took back in the early fall, I believe. Pretty happy with this painting except for the cows. Really wish I could have gone into a little bit more detail with the cows, but I was wanting to crank a painting out that day and get a nice little study done. So I'm not unhappy with it, but it's certainly not my favorite. This is one of those landscapes that I'll tell you first and foremost I probably struggled through. But I'm not unhappy with it, so I'll just that's all I'll say about it for now. But it is on that same primer with the rolled surface, and it did cause me some problems. Now this, believe it or not, is on the same surface, but this happens to be my absolute favorite of all of these that I'm showing you right now. A simple tomato with a jar of salsa. This painting probably is my favorite, not because of how technically special it is, because it's not especially great. It does have a little bit more vibrancy to it. I use some stronger red in it, but and stronger oranges, those warmer tones. But
when I was growing up, not only did we eat tomatoes, but the real thing I enjoyed was at the end of the year, my mom would juice tomatoes, and I would help her. And so we would make salsa, we would make tomato juice, and we would can it for the next year out of all the coals. And so this painting really tugs at my heart. And I think that's definitely, but I do love the salsa jar. I think the lighting on it is great. I especially like the shadow from the other tomato. And then I went really simple with the lid. But I tell you what, as a whole, it really works. I like it. I think with the right frame, and I would love to get some comments on frame options for this painting in the comments, but love this painting. And as we move on, this next one is probably my favorite landscape of the bunch. This is from an area in extreme southeastern Arkansas, or really south central Arkansas, called Felsenthal. It's a national wildlife refuge. It's actually the lowest point in the state of Arkansas by elevation, and it's at the base of the Saline River and Ouachita rivers. Just a beautiful area. Very swampy at times of the year, and at other times of the year, the water rises so much that it looks more like a big lake. In fact, there is a big lake near the bottom, but a beautiful place, fisherman's paradise. Lots of cypress trees. But just a lovely place to go and take pictures. It's not really a place that I go and plein air paint. So this one was actually done in the studio from a photograph, and it is on panel as well. Very broad strokes, really trying to amp up that abstract nature of some of my landscapes. But I like this one. The colors are all very similar. Not a very blue sky at all. It was a bit of a gray day. So this one's, I think the water, more than anything, is something that I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. But I think it's just about my favorite landscape out of this bunch. This next one, not my favorite. But it's not a bad painting overall. It's and I think it may be one that goes in a sale box, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Of a group of pine trees just out in the field. I think the composition is difficult. It is, of course, a winter scene, so the grass is pretty bland. I think I almost tried to paint too true to life in some ways. I probably should have worked the composition a little bit stronger. So I'm not gonna linger on this one, because the day I painted this one, it did depress me a little bit. So we're not gonna hang out on it too much. This one has grown on me. I was not happy with it at all when I first finished it. I'm still not really happy with these pines in here. To me, they're a little muddy. I didn't nail my colors the first go around. Probably should have wiped it off and restarted on some things. But again, it's a small panel, so it's not a huge deal. This is one that gave me a lot of trouble spreading the paint, and that this is actually the exact painting that made me want to switch back over to linen. I do like the tree on the right side that has the white tones to it. Overall, though, the shadows add a lot to it to me, and I like the depth of the hill in the background. And one of the biggest problems I've found in my painting, at least, is trying to create a sense of depth within the area that I'm from. So I mean that to me when I go and I take photos in Colorado, for instance. It's pretty easy to make a mountain look pretty grand. It's very difficult for me, at least, to make flat land or relatively flat land look really incredible on a palette or on a canvas. And this is a panel. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes I do call them canvases as well. So yeah, I'm struggling with trying to create a sense of a grand scale within some of these paintings, especially paintings like that. That's a difficult composition to pull off. This one's actually not bad because I do have a very hilly landscape to work with, and we do have some hills around here. But we move on, and actually, before I move on, I think paintings like this are going to benefit me in the long run. I feel like if I can get better at this, when I go paint the stuff that's already grand, very grand, as in mountains, my hope is that this will just make me a better painter. And so this is a difficult thing for me, and I'm willing to admit that. It's a weakness, but I'm working to get better. A green tomato. Who likes green tomatoes? I love them. From up, from the south. So we do like our green tomatoes, and being from an area that raises tomatoes, we're all used to having them. But I like this painting. This is a little 4x6, and it's not dry yet. I got to be very careful with that one. I just finished it a couple of days ago, and it's got some really thick texture. Let me see if I can get down on it and show you. Well, you can't see it as much from that angle, as much as I thought you could. This is one of the later landscapes that I've completed, and I'm happy with a lot of this painting, but the ground gave me fits. And I still don't know completely how to feel about it. In my last video before this one, I talked about struggling with these winter landscapes, and this is one where I'm really having a tough time, and I don't know if it's my painting or if I'm struggling with discovering the right scenes to paint. And I think those are two different things. But my hope is that, again, by challenging myself to paint things like this, that I'll be able to grow and just get better overall. So that's what I've been up to, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 9 paintings here. So this is 9 of around 30 that I've finished lately. Let me take you over to the front, and I'll show you the big one that I've been working on. Now, a couple of videos ago, you guys saw me paint this one. It's a little 9.875 by 16.5 panel of a duck hunter with his dog out in the waters in the swamps of Arkansas and the Delta, the Mississippi Delta. Really enjoyed this painting. Love the gun. It's of course a small painting, so there's not a lot of super detail in it, but this painting has garnered a lot of attention on the walls here at the studio. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is, if you remember during that video, I mentioned that I was doing this painting in preparation for a larger painting. Now, if you're a fan of mine on Instagram, which I encourage you to do so, go over to instagram.com/Rob Reep. You can actually see the larger version, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you now. So let's step over, and I'll show you what I've got going. So I've got it in the front window right now. And I apologize for the shadow. I'm having trouble getting the whole thing in here, but you guys can get a good vantage point of it nonetheless. We do have a bit of a glare from the window. I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to move this, and then I'll bring it back and show it to you. So I moved it a little bit to take the glare off of the canvas itself. This is a 36 by 60, I believe. So this is a big painting. And it is, like I said, the larger version of that smaller panel that I created a couple of months ago that I actually showed here on the channel. You can go back and watch that smaller version if you'd like to. This one took a lot of time here, but I do love it. It doesn't have a frame yet. I'm still waiting to frame it. I'm trying to decide if I even want to frame it prior to someone purchasing it. It's one of those paintings where it's going to take the right buyer. But let me show you some details. So let's start with the hardest part to paint, which was remarkably the dog. I love painting dogs. They're one of what I would consider one of my specialties. This one was difficult. I don't know if it was the fur. I don't paint a lot of golden retrievers or even yellow labs, so this was a slightly harder painting or dog to paint. But actually, there's a whole nother dog up underneath these layers. That's head shape is just not quite right, so I had to repaint once. Love the tail, though. The tail turned out exactly how I wanted it. The real struggle was getting the eyes correct, especially with that one in the shadow. But he turned out not bad. I'm pretty happy with him. Now as we move up a little bit, and I'll show you the remainder of the hunter. Probably two of my favorite features in this painting are the gun and the duck call. And I just love the lighting. I thought I did a pretty good job on it. The hands, I think technically I could say there's probably some issues with the hands. Hands are hard to paint for me. Very happy with how the face came out. Of course, a lot of it's in shadow, and the hat. The camo was a challenge, but I do like the way it turned out as well. And one of the aspects of my art that a lot of people, I don't know if they really notice it when they come in, but if you get up close to my paintings, they look very, very raw, very abstract, and that's on purpose. But let's take a look. You can see this one from a distance, and let's kind of get in here on some of this and just see how abstract a lot of this background landscape really is. And there's not a ton of detail in a lot of it. But that's definitely something that I'm working towards, trying to get better at. We're into the water reflection now. Now this is on linen, a wonderful Masterpiece Pro canvas. In fact, I'll show you the back side. A beautiful, beautiful, beautifully made, stretched linen canvas. So that's the biggest one of the bunch that I've worked on recently. Let's go to the back, and I'll show you guys a few more of the tomato paintings that I've been working on. So we're now in my framing area. This is sorry about the mess. I try my best. I try my best to keep this place as clean as I can, but when it comes to framing, my framing table is always a mess. I don't know why, but it just always is. So I've got a few here that I've already framed and put dust covers on, and I think most of these are panels. I think all of these are panels. This is one of the earliest tomato paintings that I actually produced here. It's a little 4x6. Love the frame though, and I believe the frame came from Jerry's Artorama. And I use, for those of you that wonder, when it comes to supplies, I use all of the above. It just depends on the price. So if Jerry's Artorama has the best price, I go with them. If Dick Blick has the best price, I go with them. Cheap Joe's, whoever it is, that's who I'm buying from. I've got a canvas or a linen roll coming in today that is coming from Jerry's Artorama, and it just so happens they had the best price for the quality that I wanted. That's the key. I could buy cotton and get it really cheap, but I'm not going to do that. I'm keeping these turned over because we get so much dust sometimes back here in this room. I've got these in a relatively safe place. This is one of my favorites. Little smaller version of the salsa with the tomato. Now I like this one, the composition. I like having the void over here on this left side. This one just, I don't know, it's one of my favorites. I think my heart kind of tugs at those salsa jars from my childhood memories. Another one of my earlier tomato paintings. Like the gold frame, I think it worked well. You guys can tell I'm a fan of big wide frames, especially for small paintings. I've never, and my wife gets on to me about that. She says I use way too many wide frames, but hey, you know, you like what you like, right? All right, I think this is actually the first tomato painting that I produced for this season. Just a bunch of tomatoes in a basket, and it turned out really well. And this is a nice little frame. I like the linen interior that it's got. It's on panel as well. I think I could paint tomatoes in my sleep at this point. Now I may come back and do another video on my framing area and how I've got this set up, because I've also got a panel building area over here where I can do my washes, and then I've got all my hardboard over here where I cut, things like that. I've got some pre-cut ones over here. So this place is right now a little bit in a mess, but I've got a new panel here that I'm just about to, I've got an antique frame for this one, and I'm going to be putting linen on this hopefully today when that roll of linen comes in, and hopefully I can share with you guys in another video how I apply that linen to the hardboard. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this is archival, whether or not hardboard is archival. I'm not going to say that I am the absolute authority on it. What I will say is that a lot of the paintings I do on hardboard are color studies. But the type of hardboard I use, from what I understand, is archival. Now, you have to buy the right kind. They're not all archival. A lot of them, a lot of hardboards, a lot of what some people would call masonite, in fact, is not archival. But I'm pretty sure what I'm using is archival. So the main thing is you can't let moisture in, you know. So that's what I watch for. But I use all archival glues, and I'm still learning how to do the linen at this point. I'm very new at that, because I've been priming them with a separate system, but we'll do another video on that. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to lately. I just want to say once again, thank you guys for joining me here on the channel. If you have not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button as well as that bell icon so that you can get notifications whenever I do upload a new video. Again, I'm going to try to upload more videos here in the future. The key is, I hope you guys enjoy the format that I'm using at the moment. I'm going to test this out. I'm not going to commit to this exact format all the time, because I'm still going to want to do some painting tutorials, things like that. But for now, we're going to do these raw videos that I can quickly edit, at least, so that I can get videos out to you guys quicker. Again, a lot of the reason that I'm doing that, are going to try to do it this way instead of the old way that I used to do it, which was editing a lot and really recording a lot of voiceovers and getting my exact thoughts down for long videos. The problem with that is I don't have time to paint at that point. So for these, I can just shoot it and go. But I just want to say thank you guys for sticking with me. We've hit 1,000 subscribers, so that's a big ups to you guys. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, and God bless.